HGI Now, turning supply chain insights into action.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to HGI Now. I'm Edward Hertzman, founder of Hertzman Global Intelligence. Joining me tonight is Stanley Szeto, executive chairman of Leverstyle, to discuss what it really means to be agile in a world that's been thrown into chaos with tariffs, wars, and energy concerns. Good evening, Stanley, and welcome.
Hi, Eddie. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's always great to have you. So for those that aren't familiar with your company, you work with about 150 different factories in multiple countries across Asia, servicing brands like Vince, John Varvatos, and Theory. You provide an opportunity to have a high product mix, but at low volume and quick turn. Now, those brands that I mentioned are household names here in the States, and about half of your revenue is generated here domestically. So my first question, kind of a macro, and I'm sure you're tired of talking about tariffs, but let's just start here. To what degree are tariffs dictating your sourcing decisions? Let's go over since last April, almost a year now. How has it impacted how your company is placing its goods?
Yeah, tariffs have been a major disruptor. And the net effect of tariffs, I think they're twofold. One is people are rushing out of China. You may recall last year, tariffs on Chinese goods went up to triple digits at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, people are just very wary of the geopolitical risk. So as to the extent possible, people are moving production out of China. The second sort of effect by tariffs was a softening of demand. So last year, especially when tariffs spiked up, people were like, "Oh, don't ship yet. I'd rather have shortage of goods than to pay all that tariffs and to bring things in." And they were also afraid that if tariffs start coming down, then I shipped earlier, then I'd be paying too much. So there is and also, of course, tariffs result in inflation of retail prices. So when there is retail price inflation, people order less volume because of the elasticity of the demand. So we saw a softening of the demand in general, starting last year, but also a rush out of China.
Did that change, where you were placing the goods, what factory partners you decided to work with? Was that a big, not only were your customers struggling with demand and whatnot, but did that also change your back end matrix at all?
Sure. So we definitely reduced our share of production in China and moved that to Vietnam and also other Southeast Asian countries. But that's our job, to basically have the most versatile backend that, come what may, whatever it's trade laws, tariffs, or even if there is a demand drop like what happened in COVID, we can help our clients cope with those changes.
Throughout this all, what's been your guiding philosophy? When customers have called you, Stanley, what do we do? This trade war is creating turmoil and chaos in our supply chain. What's been your, overall macro advice?
Well, we believe that nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know what trade policies are going to be like. We don't know how geopolitical situations will evolve. We don't even know how demand will sort of will stay there. So our advice to clients is be as versatile as you can. So make things at the very last minute when you have the demand data, and then produce in small batches so you don't have excess inventory, and therefore the discounting that's required to clear that. And it's not a secret. I mean, Zara's been doing for 30, 40 years. In the last 10 years, Shein's doing the same thing. And we're seeing this playbook extend beyond the what you call the fast fashion, fast throwaway fashion, but to even sort of a more normal clothing products, higher end. And we believe that's a trend that's going to stay.
So I want to follow up on that because I appreciate you saying book the order last minute, make small MOQs as little pieces as needed. You and I have definitely beat this Zara supply chain drum for several years. But as a supplier, does that cause a little bit of chaos for you? If I'm calling you and saying, "Hey, I need this order in 30 days, 45 days. I need only 360 pieces, 1,800 pieces. Like that's great. But what's your ability to react to that if I am waiting to the last minute?
Well, usually brands know sort of rough volumes that they need, but they don't know the exact style. They don't know the exact size assortment and so forth. So a lot of our brands work with us by saying, "Hey, we expect to make 1,000 units during these 2 weeks, a month from now, 2 months from now with you, but I have no idea what style that's going to be because it depends on what's selling in the next month or so before they place the orders." And so by booking capacity, then you've secured that. And of course, there's an understanding that if you book 1,000 units, don't go below 800, don't go over 1,200, that kind of thing. It's a little bit like if you have a company sends staff to a conference, but you don't know which staff you're sending until the last minute, but you book the hotel rooms and tell them, hey, this is HGI booking 3 rooms. And that's how we work with our clients. So they place capacity bookings without firm styling commitments.
So Stanley, at the end of last year, I know you, Kalitha, and I, we got together, we had some coffee, and as always, we had some very candid conversations. And one topic you brought up, and I was surprised how vocal you were about this, was how companies are allegedly circumventing tariffs by using foreign brokers, under invoicing, the use of DDP. I've been kind of beating this drum for a while. I've written several op-eds on this. I think it's a very substantial problem, especially in the wholesale market here in the States. I feel that a lot of people are completely, they act without any concern that they're going to get caught. This is a criminal matter. So let's just take a step back. What are you seeing as it relates to this? Have you lost business because you refuse to participate in these practices?
Through the grapevines that a lot of companies are indulging in these sort of criminal practices. And there's been a case when one of our customers sort of asked us, "Oh, can you help us with that?" And of course, as a publicly listed company, as we do things kosher, we told them, "Hey, we can't do this. And by the way, if you're asking for this, watch out because it's your brand on the label. So if customs catches this kind of stuff, you're implicated." And I think the owner of that company afterwards thanked me for telling him that this is happening. And he apparently said that he stopped that practice. But yes, we have been asked to do funny things, and to the extent that we've always said categorically said no. And there's been cases when we lost a little bit of business there. But by and large, we work with very reputable brands and retailers, and so they are not typically the companies that indulge in these kind of practices.
How prevalent do you believe this still is?
Yeah, we believe it's still quite prevalent. The U.S. Administration currently, as far as I can tell, doesn't have the resources to police this as much as they like. I'm sure that the Trump administration will sort of get the resources together and maybe in the future be much more sort of vigilant on this. But for now, we're not hearing a lot of people getting called out for doing these things. We also
we had a
ship some
conversation.
DDP, LDP to the US, and I'm not aware that, like, if the administration is randomly checking on these orders, we haven't been checked yet. Of course, we do everything properly, so we're not afraid of that. But we haven't been pulled over.
I think what's really creating a problem is if you're bringing a gene in at 8 for many years, 780, 820, and then all of a sudden it goes to 4. You're going to have a really hard time justifying that. And also you can't, you're guilty by association, whether your associate's doing it, the owner of the company is doing it. Like, I think unfortunately it's going to take some really strong examples to scare people. But I do believe this administration, and through the use of AI and more people being hired in customs, I think this is going to be a big topic. And, I appreciate you being vocal about it. Of course, everyone is focused on energy right now, but even putting the Iran war aside, someone said recently that energy reliability and cost is driving their sourcing decisions today. How much is energy a factor in how you evaluate the countries you operate in? many of which are relying on imports for their energy needs?
Well, right now we produce in 8 different Asian countries, and we're not seeing a big disruption to production due to sort of energy rationing. However, we're hearing things are getting tighter in places like Bangladesh and places like maybe Sri Lanka, whereas China, we're not hearing any concerns whatsoever. So we'll be keeping a close eye on it, because so far it hasn't been that disruptive in terms of like production delays because of electricity shortage.
So kind of a second question in this topic, Stanley, is you're big into activewear and you just made an acquisition recently in this space. How concerned are you about oil prices and their impact on polyester capacities and cost?
Well, polyester obviously is derived from petroleum, and so when the oil prices go up, polyester prices and most of the activewear today is made with polyester. The prices will go up. We're hearing like 20% price increase, but how sort of sustainable is that? Is that something is it temporary? If the war were to end tomorrow, and the strait opens up again, maybe it takes a couple months for things to normalize. Then it's just it's like a quick blip with the cost increase. But if this thing drags on and the strait remains closed and people haven't built pipelines to ship oil, avoiding the strait, then clothing will become a lot more expensive, as will a lot of other things.
You know what I always appreciate about you is the media and a lot of guests that we have. Not only we have, but most people have on these shows like to catastrophize everything. It's the end of the world. Business is going to all collapse. You kind of like, I think, have been through this so much, issue after issue, problem after problem. You just have like, we'll move on, we'll survive, we'll figure it out. It'll be temporary. This will go up, this will go back down. You have like I think a more optimistic outlook on how, like, it's a very resilient industry. We always say that. And I think, business will go on. We won't be naked. But it's refreshing not to hear, most people like to talk about doom and gloom. I feel like you're a little bit more glass half fill kind of guy.
Not quite doom and gloom like COVID, right? During COVID, when people were locked down at home, there's no demand, right? So basically that was a big shock to the industry. Another doom and gloom was in 2008 when we went through the global financial crisis, and basically U.S. brands and customers like department stores, they ceased up buying for like half a year. They thought the whole world's going to go bankrupt. So right now we're seeing high oil prices. Let's say if polyester fabrics were going to be 20%, 25% higher, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it will throw a curveball, to operating margins and inflation. But it's not like a COVID when basically people stayed home, right? If you are selling dress shirts and suits and high heels, you might as well go out of business at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. If you take 20% increase on the fabric, what percentage of the garment is fabric plus accessories plus labor? You offset all of this. Okay, yeah, it could be a small increase. So another thing you've mentioned to me recently when you and I were talking one night is that you're looking to diversify your operations out of Asia. Why are places like Turkey or Portugal or Latin America at the top of your list for future expansion?
Well, to become a truly versatile player in the industry, we need to be global. We can't be just in Asia, because there are different needs, in terms of lead time, shipping, tariff issues. So we need to be where all the major garment producing countries are. And we've identified places like Portugal, Turkey, and even like Peru as places that we need to expand into. We'll do that, possibly organically, but probably through acquisitions. We feel that it's much easier to partner with a company that's already doing business there, and then we incorporate that into our system.
Mm-hmm. So last question, just go back to what you said a few minutes ago, '08, obviously 2020, major slowdowns. I mean, not even a slowdown, complete shutting in some cases of the economy. Are you worried about a further slowdown when it comes to consumer demand? What signals are you watching? Are you worried about anything? What's kind of your outlook here?
Well, absolutely. The U.S. has been on a tear. And the economy has proven exceptionally resilient, even through their tariff last year. Tariff, brings inflation, and but a part of that is sustained by stock markets being very high. There is a wealth effect, so people feeling they made money on the stock market or in crypto or whatnot, and so people kept on spending. But if these things go into reverse, if there is a bursting of the Magnificent Seven stock bubble, if the crypto things come crashing down, and then you'd have the reverse wealth effect, and people will
Hmm.
be sort of feeling poor and therefore spending less. And if that happens, then the U.S. is can easily slip into a recession, especially with oil prices going up, so more inflation,
Hmm.
so we see 2026 as a very uncertain year in terms of the economy.
Are you seeing any changes to how your clients are buying? I know you work you know, closer to, see now, buy now, but are you seeing any signals that people are starting to get a little bit cautious in their production orders?
Well, in the last month or so, we haven't noticed a drastic drop in order quantities, but we're seeing more and more customers understanding the need to order in smaller batches closer to demand. So people are, a lot of brands are now trying that.
If they do that and they have less markdown and less, money tied up, working capital tied up in inventory, even if there's a small decline in demand, maybe still these companies would be better off than they would buying excess inventory, having to mark it down, not having the liquidity, working with retailers that don't pay their bills. So maybe this in some way is forcing people into good behavior.
Yeah, well, I think I believe that in several in the future, people who don't order in small quantities and closer to demand, carbon emissions aside, fly the goods, don't ship it to save the 6 weeks. That's you got to do that. If you don't do that, you won't be financially viable because of the excess inventory that you naturally carry. Nobody has a crystal ball on what consumers are going to buy down the road, right? In decades ago, you'd have these prince merchants that sort of can foresee what consumers want, and they actually tell the consumers this is cool and they should buy it. But in today's world, consumers, their needs are fickle, right? They
Hmm.
they 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 change their colors, their the styling, whatever, the fits. And if you order things plan things 9 months in advance, you can't have it. Even the smartest merchant will not have the forecasting error will be too large.
Well, I know you're coming up on a big birthday this year, and not you personally, but your company's 70. So that means something you're doing something right. That means you survived a lot more than 2020 and '08. You survived a lot throughout the years, which speaks to your resilience and the quality of your staff and your business and your factory partners. So congratulations on that. I know we'll talk more about that later in the year. But Stanley, thank you so much for your time, and as always, always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Eddie.